Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to the 50th episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be on podcast by tomorrow morning. If you're joining us live, please drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're catching the recording. My guest for this week is Mel Grove, a chartered accountant and MBA based in Australia, born in South Africa, schooled and worked in Australia, and worked in South Africa as well. Mel, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Wes. I'm very excited to be here.
Let's jump straight into questions. You've got an interesting story. So tell us a story, where you come from, and maybe outside of work, who is Mel Grove? Give us that backstory.
Beautiful. So I was born in PE. And I was saying to you, I don't know how to pronounce a new name. I have to work on that. And came to Australia when I was 9 years old. But for all my friends who are out there in South Africa, they know that, I love the African soil under my feet. So just cannot stay away. So this COVID business is really messing up my life. So came back to South Africa in 2007, 2008. And actually came and worked there for 4 years. So just absolutely amazing. For my whole life when I was in Australia, all I wanted to do was be back in South Africa again. So I got the opportunity. And it's really scary to say you said it's your 50th episode. For me, it's like we've been back in Australia for 10 years already and we cannot believe it. It's gone by way too fast. So just a South African girl after all. And yes, yearning to come home, that's for sure.
So you decided at the start of the economic crisis, let me go to another country and see what.
Seems like it. Let me tell you something about the South African banking regulations at Waste. I was very impressed by how South Africa went through that crisis. Absolutely amazing, relatively unscathed compared to the rest of the world, that's for sure.
That's a plus for us, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You've worked in audit in South Africa, you've worked in audit in Australia. Is it comparable? Like, what are the differences and the similarities?
I think maybe if I just take a step back and just talk about, I think I got caught up there missing South Africa for a minute, but career-wise, so the reason I actually chose accounting is because I couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to be slotted into one particular career. And I have an absolute passion for travel and applying my skills to different places. So I didn't want to be locked down into a specific job in a specific area in a specific country. So when I studied accounting, it was kind of like commerce is very broad, covers everything possible, accounting, law, tax. I made it through tax. But all aspects of how to run a successful business. And I think I was in second year uni and I didn't really know, all I knew I wanted to do something broad. So ending up in commerce, right, with accounting major. But at the end of the second year, one of my friends at school said to me, he's like, Mel, what are you going to do? He's like, usually you should be applying for VAC work, vacation work with the Big Four now. And I was like, what is that? So I ended up going to do vacation work with a few. I like to test out the waters. So I did vacation work with Deloitte, KPMG, and some other smaller boutique firms just to see where I really fitted in personality-wise. And green dot for life, I ended up going to do vacation work with Deloitte and joined them. That was my penultimate year, and then started with Deloitte way back in January 2004, which feels like just yesterday, but it was a few years ago now. So I'm based in Perth at the moment, in Perth, Australia. Western Australia, I think we're the most isolated city in the world. But I actually moved over to Melbourne to start with Deloitte over in Melbourne. So it was really amazing. And the appeal, I started in audit, and the appeal of audit was, again, that wild nature. I wanted to travel, I wanted to experience different things, and always in the back of my mind, I wanted to have something that I would be able to do in South Africa. And so I think sneaky, but so I started in audit, and that's what I loved, the opportunity to see lots of different companies, lots of different sizes, corporate structures, how people worked, how boards worked, how everything kind of tied in together, and all those, long hours, long days, long nights, long year ends, especially when you're working on US clients as well. They love to have a 31 December year end. So sad. So, all did the hard yards, and, that was really amazing. So getting my qualification here in Australia as a chartered accountant, and it was a really great base. Like, that was the whole point of, doing what I was doing, just to make sure we had a really amazing base to be able to travel, to see the world, and to, apply my skills. So then spent all that time, spent a couple of years in Melbourne, came back, spent some time in Perth, did a few secondments overseas, finished all the exams and studying. And I think I had just left Deloitte Perth to go and work in an operational role, where I chased the love of my life to South Africa. I have a South African husband as well. And, we decided to go and live in Cape Town, and I was just absolutely over the moon, and came to South Africa with no job, just this I was like, I've got this, these skills that can be applied to a completely different context, right? So I didn't transfer with Deloitte. I just, I had already left Deloitte. I was going out into the wide world, and I was going to, my plans in action away, plans in action. And I got to South Africa, and I was like, oh my God, I got to find a job. What's going on? And it's just really interesting. I started off, and I actually worked for the Platinum Group. I don't know if they're still around in South Africa, but whoa, was that like an experience and a half, hey? So here I was, fresh into South Africa, and didn't know very much, and they were hiring, and I thought, wow, this really progressive group, and they're very interesting, and fashion, a little bit sexy, you can do all
models.
Oh my gosh, Always, that's all I was thinking. I was like, the glitz, the glam, imagine all of the, the cool, I was just thinking all the events you get invited to. And I remember telling Ryan, my husband, I was just like, oh, this is so cool, and he's like, oh, this doesn't sound exciting. And I think that's what I had really embedded in me. All that glitters is not gold. I think we were working in season. They call it season. The Christmas season. Getting up 6, 7 in the morning, traveling to Joburg, Durban. They wanted our team to be like a whole team. So even though I was in finance, I would, we had to be versatile and multi, everything I wanted to do. So I was like, be careful what you wish for, right? And I went on and did that. But if the job was just really hectic, what they wanted for, what they expected was just really very, very, very intense. And I got to know one of the partners at Deloitte really well. I was chatting to her. I think we were introduced by friends. Her name's Charneel Sickle. Love Charneel. And I said, okay, I need to come back to Deloitte. So an opportunity opened up with Deloitte, and I was so happy because it was like coming home. I was like, this is what I can do. And I love the, with the honestly, the accounting firms, you have your grads coming in, everyone's doing their fresh out of uni, going through and doing their CASAs and, getting the trainee years. And I loved that connection, and getting out and so, dealing with clients and all those. And that was the beginning of the most amazing time that I had, friends that I have, my best friends, I hope they're still on here. Lashane Abrams, shout out to her. She's come and visited us here in Australia. And just some of my most best friends that I made in that time, just the experiences, it's a long way away, so I was getting there, but I wanted to, the experiences I had in South Africa are actually the most amazing and most formative of my career. And whatever I tell you now is just as true now as it was for me, when I got to South Africa 13 years ago. But because of, the skill shortage in our country, the opportunity that you have to actually get exposed to things that you wouldn't get exposed to so early in your career. So I really was able to contrast, what my experience was in Australia, as an analyst, and, how long my expected career journey was going to be before you start to hit milestones and, allowed to do all these different things. Where in South Africa, we just don't have the time and resources to muck around, right? Like, you have things to do. And I found myself when I was there exposed to doing things much faster, or, really blessed in the Cape Town office, just being able to really run with business development, doing a lot of client engagement, which I loved, a lot of the stuff with the grads. Like, I used to hang out with Lushane all the time, like doing recruitment, going out to the universities with the BASA, with, AWCA, like all these amazing things that were really in my heart to come and give back, through education and opportunities. And so Deloitte was such an amazing, amazing base for that. It's, like I think about now my friends like Lorato and, and Mary, and we just had so much fun doing things that we loved. And yeah, that undoubtedly, that is the biggest advantage of being in South Africa, is like being able to be exposed to these opportunities everywhere. Away, so I'm not letting you get like a line either.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that's a good initial summary.
Yes.
But, so you've shifted between working in Australia, working in South Africa. Let's say for somebody sitting out there who's thinking of moving to whichever country, what was the change like for you moving from one country to another? Was it seamless? Was there a lot to learn? What tips do you have for somebody thinking about moving or in the process of moving countries?
I think if you can, like, for example, if you're working with an accounting firm, I was with Deloitte, my green dot, and if you can transfer with the same firm, it makes a big difference because you're keeping one thing consistent. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me coming to South Africa, Platinum was way out. Like, it was just, everything was different, but coming back to Deloitte was like home again. Like, the policies, the procedures, things are different for different countries, but the look, feel of the organization is the same. So if you can go for that, like even if you trained and you never worked, if you trained with KPMG or PwC or anything else, how can you get that common link? Just to keep something consistent when you're changing those. It's even when I came back to Australia after being in South Africa for 4 years, I actually came back to Deloitte again. I said, Deloitte's like my old boyfriend I keep going back to. I came back to Deloitte again. And, it was always the intention. Like, I never said, I'm going to go and, push for partner. It was always a transition because it was a really good transition back into the Perth market. But similarly, if you are coming, from overseas, anywhere you go, reach out to your networks. Who do you know who understands the quality of your qualification? You see, I would hire a CASA any day because I know how you guys train. I know what you go through. So, reach out to your networks. One of the ladies, I can't even believe how small the world is. Jeanette Ross, she recruited me in Cape Town. She got me a job and we kept in touch ever since. And now she's actually the relationship manager of Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand in New Zealand. So when I had a friend reach out to me who wanted to move to New Zealand, I messaged Jeanette and connected them. So don't underestimate the value of how global our networks are.
Power of networks. So very true.
Authentic relationships and authentic networks, not just, when you want something, but just, that's the benefit of these relationships that we have.
100%. If anybody's got any questions for Mal, please put them in the comments now. We'll deal with all the questions towards the end. Now
I didn't see all the comments. Now I see them.
Don't worry. Don't let them throw you just yet. I see that you completed your MBA about 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe talk to us about what value did it add to you, and would you recommend to other chartered accountants to also consider doing an MBA?
Let me tell you, it's so funny. Like, I've always wanted to do an MBA only because I love leadership. Like, I have an absolute passion for people and development. So I always wanted to study further. And I think for all of us, as professionals, that learning is not, okay, now I've finished my CASA, I'm done. my life is complete. I know all that I must know. And, and so that's what's always in the back, always in the back of my head. Okay, what am I going to do next? But my darling husband, he had the turn studying. So I think he went back and did another degree in sports science, and then he did honors. And then I said to him, okay, it's my turn now. I'm going to do my MBA. But really, I think for all of us as professionals, it's a matter of growth. Like, you need to think, it might not be an MBA, it might be, the Institute of Company Directors course, or it might be a company secretarial course, or it may be, some of my friends have been doing like masters in supply chain management. So, you are not necessarily you don't want to run businesses, you want to know more operational. So depending on where you're at, like, everything is relevant to where you want to go and, what heights do you want to reach in your career. That I think that's the most important thing, is that it makes me laugh because I know the Deloitte signals have been like refreshed recently, but one of the values of Deloitte was actually continuously grow and improve. And that is something that's really core. This is why I know that when you join values-based organizations, it's not just the values on the wall, it's the way you like end up living your professional careers, and continuously grow and improve is one of those. Because even for me now, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do next? Like, what is the next opportunity to learn and grow?
I like that. You try and figure out what you want and then study something to get you there, not just studying something for the sake of studying.
Yes. Don't just do it because it won't be. And like, I come back to, what I said earlier, Wace, like, authenticity is really important. And you'll find, so many times I say to everyone I work with, I'm like, where you have the opportunity, take the experience first, the money will come, because the authenticity that you actually, the authenticity that you speak with and the passion that comes through, it's natural when you're doing something you love. Like, it's very obvious.
100%. Talk to us a little bit about the opportunities for South African chartered accountants in Australia. Are there opportunities available? And if so, where would be the best place to find out more?
I've got to say a little shout out to Melissa Davis. Hi, Mel. Sorry to say hello there. Opportunities for South Africans in Australia, absolutely huge. So Australia has something called a skills shortage list. It actually changes every year. But what I find is that accountants, particularly us with the audit background, like CASAs with audit background, are very versatile. So you can fill in a lot of different types of businessy roles. But on the skills, that's where you're able to actually get what do they call it? Like a specific skills visa. And on the website, I can provide you the details later, Wace, and you can actually post it. There's a list, so that this listing gets refreshed every year, and they'll have a certain number of skilled migrant visas for that particular category. So if you're, for example, a CA, it will say like accountant, a qualified accountant, and these are the different things. Some of the conditions, maybe you have to go and work rural, for a certain number of years, or you may have to go to like where they don't actually have the skills available, that we're able to provide. So, I mean, really everyone knows like South African chartered accountants are amazingly trained and able to do their, roles to a very high level. So the opportunities, not only Australia, the world is really, it's immense.
Great. You mentioned earlier also you're quite involved in Abasa in South Africa.
Yes.
Does Australia also have something similar? Are there similar problems, or is it a very different country?
So I think that's where some of my background really comes in and inspires me a lot. So in Australia, I do a lot of work with the Aboriginal, and now it's actually being called the First Nations people. So we do a lot of work there in development. So for me, particularly in mentoring and education and how to, I was talking about an analogy, like helping someone to fish as opposed to giving them a piece of fish and saying, here, I'll bring you another piece of fish next week, So really working on education. And I've recently started working as well. It's called, I'm thinking of the acronym, culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. It's quite a mouthful, but Australia is very multicultural. So, when you don't meet that traditional look of what, like traditional Australian looks like, it is quite tough in the community. So working with multicultural communities to be able to help them do things like apply for grants to enhance their, community in the eyes of the wider population. So that it's very interesting. A lot of things are very different, but a lot are very much the same as well. Especially with the First Nations people, the paradigm with South Africa is very, very interesting.
Okay, that's quite definitely.
Yeah.
So maybe my next question is, what's next for you? Are you permanently based in Australia? Could you be moving to another country? Could you be coming back to South Africa?
Oh my gosh, always. All I want to do is be a nomad. So I'm trying to convince Ryan Grove that I'm allowed to come back to South Africa. I actually took so last year I was at Chevron for about 8 years, and I took a voluntary redundancy because it's going out on my own and doing all these exciting things. Like, we talked about I am doing some CFO consulting with some small startup sustainability companies, which is amazing. I would love to, spend my time between South Africa and Australia. Like, that's my ultimate dream, because number one, my dad doesn't like to travel. So to see him, I have to come back again. But I would love to spend time, in South Africa, maybe over December, and just split it between Australians. That would be my ultimate dream, and traveling the world in between.
Well, with the laptop lifestyle, I think you can pull it off. So hopefully with all the drama getting done, I'm sure you'll be able to do that.
Oh my gosh. Once COVID, hey, I'm fully vaccinated always. I'm ready. I said, everyone, I'm not mucking around. I'm getting vaccinated. If I need a vaccination passport or whatever thing, I'll be doing it. Whatever I need to do, step down onto South African soil. Oh my gosh. Yes, I will be doing it.
I'm going to follow up with a question that I like to ask all of my guests.
Yes.
What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Oh. Do you know, can I tell you, I used to say this about my babies. They're not babies anymore, Awace, my little one. Her name's Isabella, but we call her Squish. And Sterling, we call him Ling. He's turning 9, and Isabella's turning 5 going on 15. And do you know, it's like when they were little, the days were long, but the years were so short. Do you know, I look back and I think, just take a moment, and even when you're far out in the thick of it and you're thinking this job is never going to end, take a moment and breathe it in, because we all have been there. Do you know, take a moment, enjoy the people you are with, and just enjoy it. Try not to push through. Always think, I've got to finish this exam. I've got to sign off for my traineeship. I need to go be a CFO. I need to go do, all these things we think we need to do. And we rush. And I was like, oh my goodness, next year, I'm going to be a very big number. And I was just like, where did all that time go? So that's what I say. Just stop, enjoy the people you're with, take a moment, and try not to speed up the journey too much, because the time goes by regardless.
Enjoy the process, enjoy the journey.
Yes, absolutely.
It. I'm going to check if there's any. It doesn't look like there's any questions. Everybody's just happy to see you from the way things are going.
So I want to miss you guys.
So no questions from the audience, but are there any last words from you, or anything you want to discuss or would like the audience to know?
I think the thing is, if you have any questions and stuff, you're always welcome to reach out to me. If I can't help you, I will always, try to connect you with someone else. Got great global networks as well. So, just feel free to actually, keep in touch, guys.
We've got one question that slipped through, so you mind if I just put that up quickly?
Oh, please,
question
absolutely.
from Melissa Davids.
What
was the biggest challenge you faced while completing your MBA in terms of time management and making sure you're able to do the best in your job and also be an amazing mom? That's a big question, but go.
Oh my gosh. Melissa David's girlfriend, let me tell you, that year I think I actually started. I look back, poor Ryan. He deserves a husband of the year, a badge. I started in May 2018, and I was doing like a flexi. So I didn't take full time, I didn't take any time off work. And I was actually inspired by another friend from South Africa that I met randomly in Bali, and she was doing her MBA. So I came back and I'm like, right, it's time for me to start my MBA. And it was exceptional time management. Like, I had my timetable, and it was all my units that I was going to take was pre-selected and put in. If I had everything in my life, we have a Grow family calendar, and everything that we do is in the calendar. And Ryan knows, first come, first serve. If you have not blocked out that time in the diary to catch up with your friends, to play soccer, basketball, whatever you want to do, if I blocked it out for study, then we'd actually just move it around. I have an amazing family support. My mum, my dad, my cousin Shanice, my sister, every man, our whole tribe that we have around us, my girlfriends, like my friend Nava, my friend Vicky, anyone, everyone knew that I was studying. So everyone just really rallied around and supported me to make my dreams come true. When there was exams, and they'd take the kids and cook food and, look after Ryan. And sometimes I'd be getting up, I would go to work and be there at 5 a.m. And I was working, so sometimes I had calls with the US. So I'd get to work at 5, do a couple of hours, study, have my first meeting. I'll have study sessions during the day on my lunch break. I pack my lunch. I go straight to class after, after work, see the kids in between and fitting in. Yeah. Supreme planning. I think that's what it comes down to.
Supreme planning and relying on or making sure you set up a support system.
Like your tribe, you support your tribe.
No, that's a great way to do it. That's a great way to end. Reminder to everyone, the show is live on YouTube and will be on podcast tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you think it's added value, don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Mel, thank you so much for your time and for staying up so late to talk to us. Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat.